Stratocles, Agit's brother, who had petitioned Caesar not to serve in the army but to pursue philosophy, arrived in Patras from Italy at that very moment. Excitement overtook the entire praetorium of Aristocles, because Stratocles had not come to visit Agit's for a long time. Maximilla too left the bedroom delighted to greet him, and when she had welcomed Stratocles, she went inside with him. At daybreak, she was alone while Stratocles fulfilled his duty to his friends, behaving gently towards everyone and greeting them all graciously and with decorum. As he was thus engaged, one of the servants under the supervision of Aristocles, whom Stratocles loved dearly, was stricken by a demon and lay in filth, out of his mind. When Stratocles saw him he said,
"If only I had never come here, but perished at sea, this would not have happened to me. Friends, I cannot live without him."
As he said this, turning to those with him, he hit himself about the eyes and became disturbed and unfit to be seen. When Maximilla heard about this, she emerged upset from her bedroom and said to Stratocles, "Do not worry about your servant, brother. Soon he will be healed, for there is a most God-fearing man staying in this city who can not only dispel demons, but if a menacing and serious sickness overcomes someone, he cures it. We have therefore come to trust in him, but we say this as those who have put him to the test." Aphidamer likewise said such things to Stratocles to restrain him from performing some rash act, in his extreme anguish. While both women were consoling Stratocles, Andrew, having agreed with Maximilla that he would go to the boy, arrived at the praetorium. On entering the gate he said,
"Some force is fighting inside. Hurry, brothers."
Without asking questions he burst inside to the place where Stratocles' servant was foaming at the mouth, entirely contorted. Those who came dashing because of Stratocles' cries had no idea who Andrew was when they saw him smiling and pushing aside those who were present, making a path in order to get to the servant lying on the ground. Those who had already met Andrew and had seen him at work gave ground, fearing him as a god. Stratocles' servants, on the other hand, viewed him as a common man and tried to beat him. When the rest saw them maltreating him, they rebuked them for not knowing what they were doing. When they settled down, they waited to see the outcome. Just then someone told Maximilla and Aphidamer that the Blessed One had arrived. They were elated, ran from their homes, and hurried to Stratocles. "Come and you will see how your servant is healed." Stratocles also got up and walked with them, and when he saw the enormous crowd standing around his servant he said quietly,
"Alcman,
this was the boy's name.
you have become a spectacle by coming to Achaia."
Andrew stared at Maximilla, and while looking at her he said the following,
"My child, what is most disconcerting to those who are turning to a faith in God away from a great tempest and wandering is to see these ailments cured which many considered beyond help. Look, even now I see what I am saying coming to pass. Magicians are standing here helpless to do anything. They have given up healing the servant. So have those charlatans whom we all see trading in public. Why have they been unable to expel this fearsome demon from the servant? Because they are kindred to it. It is useful to say this before the present crowd."
Without delay he got up and said,
O God, who do not heed to magicians, O God, who do not offer yourself to the quacks, O God, who withdraw from things foreign to yourself, O God, who always offer your possessions to your own, even now, in the presence of all these people, grant my request quickly with respect to Stratocles' servant by banishing the demon whom those who are its kindred could not.
Immediately the demon relented and said in a masculine voice,
I flee, servant of God. I flee not only from this servant, but also from this entire city.
"I not only command you to flee from this city,
Andrew told him,
but I bar you from setting foot in any of those regions where there so much as a trace of my brethren."
When the demon had left, Altman got up from the ground. Andrew extended his hand to him, and the lad walked with him, self-composed, steady on his feet, speaking normally, affectionately looking at Andrew and his master, and inquiring about the cause for the crowd inside. Andrew told him,
"There is no need for you to learn about anything alien to you. It is enough for us to see in you what we have seen.
While they were thus occupied, Maximilla took Andrew and Stratocles by the hand and entered her bedroom along with all of the brethren who were there. Once seated, they fixed their eyes on the blessed Andrew so that he might speak. For the sake of Stratocles, Maximilla had been eager for the apostle to talk so that he might believe in the Lord. His brother Hagetes was altogether blasphemous and despicable with respect to what is superior.
O Stratocles,
Andrew began,
I know well that you are moved by what has happened, but I am also certain that I must bring out into the open the person now latent within you. Your total bewilderment and pondering of the source and cause of what has happened are the greatest proofs that the soul within you is troubled, and the perplexity, hesitation, and astonishment when you please me. Bring to birth the child you are carrying, and do not give yourself over to labor pains alone. I am no novice at midwifery or divination. I desire what you are bearing. I love what you are suppressing. I will suckle what is within you. I know the one who is silent. I know the one who has hope. Already your new self speaks to me. Already I encounter those things he has suffered for so long. He is ashamed of his former religion. He mourns his former public conduct. He considers all his former worship vacuous. He has no idea what true religion is. He suffers in order to become educated. Whatever his former philosophy, he now knows that it was hollow. He sees that it is destitute and worthless. Now he learns that it promises nothing essential. Now he admits that it pledges nothing useful. Is that not so? Does the person inside you not say these things, Stratocles?
After a loud groan, Stratocles answered as follows.
Most prophetic man, truly a messenger of the living God, I too will not separate from you until I recognize myself by having despised all those things about which you rebuked me for idly squandering my time in them.
Stratocles was with the apostle night and day and never left him, sometimes examining, learning from, and interrupting him, and other times remaining silent and enjoying himself, having truly become enamored of saving attentiveness. Declaring that he would take leave of all his possessions, he decided to live alone, with no one else but the apostle. He ceased examining the Blessed One when anyone else was present, but while the rest of the believers were doing something else, he questioned him in private. When the others fell asleep, he would lie awake and by his enthusiastic interruptions would not let Andrew sleep. Andrew would not keep quiet but exposed Stratocles' inquiries to the brethren by telling him,
Stratocles, double your harvest by asking me questions in private, and by hearing the same in the presence of the brethren, for in this way what you desire and seek will all the more surely be stored up in you. It is not right for you to conceal your labor pains even from your peers. Take the example of a woman in labor. When the labor pains overcome her and the focus is forced by some power to come forth, not to stay within but to be squeezed outside, the fetus becomes obvious and noticeable to the attending women who take part in such mysteries. It was the fetus itself that cried out when the mother cried out earlier. Then, after the birth, these initiates at last provide for the newborn whatever care they know, so that, insofar as it is up to them, the fetus might be born alive. Likewise, Stratocles, my child, we too must not be passive, but bring your offspring into the open, so that they may be registered and be brought to the gift of saving words by many kindred, whose associate I found you to be.
Maximilla and Aphiadama rejoiced that Stratocles was conducting himself in a pious manner, was at last firmly accepting all the words that were akin to him, and possessed a steady soul and a firm and unalterable faith in the Lord. Alcman, after his cure, no longer resisted the faith. Because they were rejoicing, and being confirmed in Christ night and day, Stratocles, full of gratitude, Maximilla, Aphiadama, Alcman, along with many of the other brethren, were deemed worthy of the Lord's seal.
My children,
Andrew told them,
if you keep the seals in position separate from other seals that imprint different designs, God will commend you and receive you to his domain. Because such a radiant image appears in your souls which are essentially set loose from your bodies, the punishing powers, evil authorities, fearsome rulers, fiery angels, hideous demons, and foul forces, who cannot enter being forsaken by you, since they have nothing to do with the symbol of the seal which is kindred to light, run around and sink during their flight to their kindred, darkness, fire, gloom, and whatever other impending punishment one might imagine. But if you pollute the brilliance of the grace given you, those awful powers will taunt you and tease you by dancing here and there. Like an impostor or a tyrant, each will demand a tone. Then it will do you no good to call on the God of your seal which you defiled by apostatizing from him. So, my children, let us guard the deposit entrusted to us. Let us return the deposit spotless to the one who entrusted it to us. When we arrive there, let us say to him, "Look, we brought you your gift unabused. Which is your possessions will you give us?" He will answer us at once, "I will give you myself. All that I am I give to my own. If you desire unflickering light, I am it. If you desire a life not subject to evolution, I am it. If you desire rest from futile labor, you have me as your rest. If you desire a friend who supplies goods not of this world, I am your friend. If you desire a father for those who are rejected on earth, I am your father. If you desire a legitimate brother to set you apart from false brothers, I am your brother. If you desire and seek anything more valuable to you, you have me with all that is mine, and all that is mine will be in you." Beloved, our Lord gives us this reply.
After Andrew said these things, some of the brethren cried, others rejoiced, out because he has become a neophyte. Stratocles in particular was so elevated in his mind that he forsook all his possessions and devoted himself to the word alone. There was great joy among the brethren as they gathered together night and day at the Praetorium with Maximilla. On the Lord's Day, when the brethren were assembled in Ajit's bedroom listening to Andrew, the proconsul arrived home. When her husband's arrival was announced to Maximilla, she was troubled, anticipating the outcome, that he would find so many people inside. When Andrew saw her perplexity, he said to the Lord,
"Do not permit Ajits to enter this bedroom, Lord Jesus, until your servants can leave here without fear, for they have come together for your sake, and Maximilla constantly pleads with us to meet thee and take our rest here. Inasmuch as you have judged her worthy to deserve your kingdom, may she be especially emboldened, and Stratocles too. Save us all by repelling that savage lion armed to attack us."
As the proconsul Ajits came in, he had stomach pains, asked for a chamber pot, and spent a long time sitting, attending to himself. He did not notice all the brethren leaving front of him. For Andrew laid his hand on each one and said,
"Jesus will screen your appearance from Ajits, in order to secure your invisibility before him."
Last of all, Andrew sealed himself and left. When this grace of the Lord was completed, Stratocles, because he had been away from his brother for a long time, went out and embraced Ajits, with a smile on his face, but with no joy in his soul. The rest of his servants and freedmen greeted him in the same manner. But Ajits, out of passion for Maximilla, rushed into the bedroom assuming she was still asleep. She was at prayer. When she saw him, she looked away toward the ground.
"First give me your right hand,"
he told her.
"I will kiss the woman I will call no longer wife, but queen, so that I may find relief in your chastity and love for me."
For when the wretch found her at prayer, he supposed she was praying for him and was delighted to hear his own name mentioned while she prayed. This is what Maximilla actually said: "Rescue me at last from Ajit's filthy intercourse and keep me pure and chaste, giving service only to you, my God." When he approached her mouth intending to kiss it, she pushed him back and said, "Ajits, after prayer a woman's mouth should never touch a man's." Taken back by the sternness of her face, the proconsul left her. Because he had just completed a long journey, he took off his traveling clothes, relaxed, and lay down to sleep. Maximilla then told Aphidama, "Sister, go to the Blessed One so that he may come here to pray and lay his hand on me while Ajits is sleeping." Without hesitation, Andrew went and entered another bedroom where Maximilla was. Stratocles also entered with the apostle, having come with the Blessed One from his guest house. After Stratocles had greeted his brother, he asked about the accommodation where the Lord's apostle was staying. Guided by a brother named Antiphons, Stratocles entered with the Blessed One. Andrew laid his hand on Maximilla and prayed as follows:
I pray to you, my God, Lord Jesus Christ, who knows the future, and I entrust to you my child, the worthy Maximilla. May your word and power be mighty in her, and may the spirit that is in her struggle even against Ajits, that insolent and hostile snake. O Lord, may her soul remain forever pure, sanctified by your name. In particular, protect her, O Master, from this disgusting pollution. With respect to our savage and unbearable enemy, cause her to sleep apart from visible husband, and wed her to her inner husband, whom you above all recognize, and for whose sake the entire mystery of your plan of salvation has been accomplished. If she has such a firm faith in you, may she obtain her own proper kinship through separation from those who masquerade as friends, but are really enemies.
When he had prayed thus and entrusted Maximilla to the Lord, he left with Stratocles once again. Maximilla then planned the following. She summoned a comely, exceedingly wanton servant girl named Euclia and told her something that delighted her and met her desires. You will have me as a benefactor of all your needs, providing you scheme with me and carry out what I advise. Because she wanted to live chastely from the time on, Maximilla told Euclia what she wanted and got her word agreeing to it, and so for some time she employed the following subterfuge. Just as a woman customarily adorns herself to look like her rival, Maximilla groomed Euclia in just such finery and put her forward to sleep with Ajits in her stead. Having used her as his lover, he let her get up and go to her own bedroom, just as Maximilla used to. By doing so, Maximilla escaped detection for some time, and thereby got relief, rejoiced in the Lord, and never left Andrew. When 8 months had elapsed, Euclia demanded that her lady procure her freedom. That same day, Maximilla granted her whatever she asked. A few days later she made more demands, this time a large sum of money, and Maximilla gave it to her without hesitation. When Euclia demanded some of her jewelry, Maximilla did not object. In a word, even though Euclia regularly took clothing, fine linen, and headbands from Maximilla, she was not content but flaunted the affairs before the other servants, boasting and vaunting herself. The slaves, though indignant at Euclia's bragging, at first curbed themselves from injuring her. But she would laugh at them when showing them the gifts her mistress had given her. Euclia's fellow servants recognized them but were at a loss about what to do. Wishing to provide even greater proof of what she was saying, Euclia stationed 2 of them at the head of her master's bed when he was drunk, in order to convince them that she was indeed sleeping with him as though she were Maximilla. When she woke him from a deep sleep, she and the fellow servants observing the situation heard,
Maximilla, my queen, why do you come so late?
Euclia said nothing, and the attending servants left the bedroom without a sound. But Maximilla, supposing that Euclia was true to her word and reliable because of the gifts given her, spent her nights resting with Andrew along with Stratocles and all the other brethren. Andrew saw a vision, and as Maximilla listened, he told the brethren,
Today at the home of Ajits some new contrivance is brewing, brimming with trouble and wrath.
Maximilla begged him to disclose what this might be, but he said,
Do not be eager to learn from me what you are to recognize soon enough.
She altered her customary attire and entered the praetorium gate in plain sight. The household servants who had known about the affair, how it was that every day she and Stratocles went to Andrew, and at what house she returned to her own bedroom, took her to be a visitor. She entered the proconsul's praetorium at that hour trying to escape detection. When they had forcibly exposed her they noticed she was their mistress. Some of them wanted to divulge the ruse and to tell Ajits, while the others, motivated by hypocrisy toward their mistress, feigned fondness for her and silenced the others, assaulted them as though they were insane, and drove them out. While the slaves were fighting each other, Maximilla burst into her bedroom and prayed that the Lord would fend her from every evil. 1 hour later, those who had fought on Maximilla's behalf against their fellow servants set upon her, fawning, expecting to receive some reward, as though they were servants of Aegetes. The Blessed Lady considered them deserving of their request and summoned a Phaidama. Give them their due. She ordered that those who had hypocritically simulated affection for her be given 1,000 denarii and commanded them to disclose the matter to no one. Even though they solemnly swore themselves to silence about what they had seen, at the instigation of their father the devil, they went to their master immediately, money in hand, and told him the whole story. Including how their own fellow servant submitted to the plan Maximilla devised because she no longer wanted to sleep with Aegetes, repulsed by sexual intercourse with him as a heinous and despicable act. The proconsul learned everything in detail, how Euclia had shared his bed as though she were his spouse, and how she confessed to having done so to her fellow slaves. Through interrogation he also discovered her motivation, for under torture she confessed to all the payments she received from her lady for keeping quiet. The proconsul, furious at her for boasting to her fellow servants and for saying these things in order to defame her mistress, he wanted the matter to be kept secret since he was still fond of his spouse, cut out Euclia's tongue, mutilated her, and ordered her thrown outside. She stayed there without food for several days before she became food for the dogs. The rest of the servants who had told their story to him, there were 3 of them, he crucified. Stricken by grief, Aegetes stayed in seclusion that day and ate nothing at all, baffled by the great change in Maximilla's attitude toward him. After crying for some time and reproaching his gods, he went to his spouse, fell at her feet weeping, and said,
I cling to your feet, I who have been your husband now for 12 years, who always revered you as a goddess, and still do because of your chastity and your refined character, even though it might have been tarnished, since even you are human. So if you are keeping some secrets from me about another man, something I never would have suspected, I will make allowances, and then myself will cover it up, just as you often put up with my follies. Or if there's something else even more serious than this that separates you from me, confess it and I will quickly remedy the situation, for I know it is entirely useless to contradict you.
While he persistently cajoled and begged, she told him, I am in love, Aegetes. I am in love, and the object of my love is not of this world and therefore is imperceptible to you. Night and day it kindles and inflames me with love for it. You cannot see it, for it is difficult to see, and you cannot separate me from it, for that is impossible. Let me have intercourse with it and take my rest with it alone. The proconsul left her as if he were a maniac, not knowing what to do. He did not dare commit any impropriety against the blessed woman, for her pedigree far outstripped his. He said to Stratocles, who was walking with him,
Brother and my only legitimate surviving relative, I do not know if my wife is in a state of ecstasy or lunacy.
And as he dejectedly began to tell Stratocles something else, one of his attending servants whispered in his ear,
Master, if you would learn of this affair in detail, ask Stratocles. He will satisfy your curiosity, for he knows all about your wife. But if you wish to know of the entire matter now, I will apprise you.
He drew Aegetes aside and told him privately,
There is a certain stranger sojourning here who has become renowned not only in this city but throughout Achaea. He performs great miracles and cures which exceed human strength, as I in part can corroborate in that I was present and saw him revive corpses. And so that you may know the whole story, he proclaims a reverence for the divine and truly shows it to be shining forth into public view. my mistress, following Aphidamas' lead, became acquainted with this stranger. She has so given away to desire for him that she loves no one more than him, including you, I would say. Not only has she become intimately involved with the man, she has enchained your brother Stratocles with the same passion for him that has enchained her. They confess but one God, the one that man disclosed to them, denying the existence of every other on earth. But listen to what your brother did. That was the most insane thing of all. Even though he is of noble stock, the most honored man in Achaea, addressed as brother of the proconsul Aegeates, he carried his own little oil flask to the gymnasium. Even though he owns many slaves, he appears in public doing his own chores, buying his own vegetables, bread, and other necessities, and carrying them on foot through the center of the city, without shame in the sight of everybody.
While the youth was telling this to his master, who was taking a walk and staring at the ground all the time, he spotted Andrew from a distance and shouted out loud,
"Look, master, there is the man responsible for the present disruption of your household."
The entire crowd turned to see the cause of his shout. Without another word, the youth, who was as fearsome as Aegeates, as though he were his brother and not really his slave, ran from the proconsul, seized Andrew, and forcibly brought him to Aegeates, wrapping around his neck the towel that the Blessed One used to wear over his shoulder. When the proconsul saw him, he recognized him and said,
"You are the one who once cured my wife, and who refused a considerable sum of money that I wanted to donate. Teach me too about your renown, and what sort of power you have, such that you are praised, so I hear, by those who are rich and poor, including infants, even though you appear in this manner like a simple old man."
The entire crowd there dearly loved the apostle, and when they learned that the proconsul was speaking with him but not knowing why, they ran to the place where he was talking with Andrew. Without hesitation, Aegeates ordered him to be locked up, saying,
"Corrupter, you will see my rewards to you for your benefactions to Maximilla."
A short time later, Aegeates left and went to Maximilla and discovered her eating bread and olives with Aphidama, this being the normal time for it, and said to her,
"Maximilla, now that I have captured your teacher and locked him up, I bring you news about him. He will not escape from me but will suffer a horrible death."
"My teacher is not someone who can be detained," the Blessed Lady answered. "For he is not apprehensible or perceptible. Inasmuch as you have never overpowered anyone like this, Aegeates, stop this boasting." He went out smiling, leaving her to eat. "Sister," Maximilla said to Aphidama, "here we are eating while our benefactor, second to the Lord himself, is imprisoned. Go to the garrison in the name of the Lord, Aphidama, and find out where the prison is. I believe that at nightfall we will be able to see the Lord's apostle, and that no one will see me leaving except Jesus and you, my guide." Aphidama changed the usual clothing and dutifully rushed off. Once she discovered where the prison was, she went there and saw a large crowd standing at the prison gate. She inquired why the crowd had formed, and someone told her,
"Because of the most pious Andrew, locked up by Aegeates."
When the faithful Aphidama had stood there for an hour, she saw the prison gate opened, and encouraged by this, she said, "Jesus, I ask you to go in with me to your servant." No one detected her as she entered and found the apostle speaking with his fellow inmates, whom he had already strengthened by encouraging them to believe in the Lord. When he turned and saw Aphidama, his soul was elated, and he said to the Lord,
"Glory be to you, Jesus Christ, ruler of true words and promises, who instills courage in my fellow servants. All who make use of you conquer their enemies, for you alone exist. Behold, your Aphidama, driven by desire for us, has come here. I know that she and her mistress are under surveillance. Shield her with your covering both now as she leaves and this evening when she returns with her mistress, so that they will be invisible to their enemies. For as long as I have been here, they have made every effort to be bound together with me. Guard them yourself, Lord, for they are affectionate and God-loving."
When he had prayed for Aphidama, Andrew dismissed her and said,
"The prison gate will be opened before you get there, and when you and Maximilla return here this evening, it will have been opened, and you will rejoice in the Lord and leave again, so that by these events too you both might be confirmed in our Lord."
Aphidama left at once and found everything to be just as Andrew had predicted. When she came to Maximilla, She informed her about the Blessed One's noble soul and resolve, namely, that even though imprisoned he was not quiet, but in fact urged on his fellow inmates and extolled the Lord's power. She also recounted to her whatever else he said to her inside the prison that pertained to them both. When Maximilla heard everything Aphiadama told her about the apostle, she exulted in spirit and said, "Glory be to you, O Lord, for I am about to see your apostle again without fear. Even if an entire legion kept me locked up under key, it would not be strong enough to prevent me from seeing your apostle. It would be blinded by the radiant appearance of the Lord and by the boldness of his servant before God." Having said this, she waited for lamps to be lit so that she could leave. The proconsul said to some of those who were with him,
I know Maximilla's audacity, because she never obeys me. Therefore, leave the praetorium doors unguarded but have 4 men go off to the prison and tell the jailer, at this moment secure the door for which you are responsible. See that you do not open it for any of the dignitaries, even if you are won over by intimidation or bribery, not even if I should come myself, or you will lose your head.
He commanded 4 others posted around her bedroom to detect if she should come out. The first 4 sped to the prison, while the others paced up and down in front of the Blessed Woman's bedroom as ordered. The cursed Agites went to supper. Maximilla prayed with Aphiadama to the Lord for a long time, telling the Lord again, "Lord, at last it is time for me to go to your servant." She left the bedroom with Aphiadama, saying, "Lord, be with us and do not forsake those who are here." When she arrived at the prison gate, she found a beautiful young boy standing before open doors who told them,
Both of you go into your Lord's apostle. He has been expecting you for some time.
Running ahead of them, he went to Andrew and told him,
Look, Andrew, these women have come to you rejoicing in your Lord. May they be strengthened in him by your speech. Is everything about you lax? Have you still not convinced yourselves that you do not yet bear his goodness? Let us stand in awe and rejoice with each other over our abundant partnership with him. Let us say to each other, Blessed is our race, for someone has loved it. Blessed is our existence, for someone has shown it mercy. We are not cast to the ground, for we have been recognized by such a height. We do not belong to time, so as to be dissolved by time. We are not the product of motion, which disappears of its own accord, nor of earthly birth so as to die in the same condition. Rather, we are those who aspire to greatness. We belong to the one who indeed shows mercy. We belong to the better, therefore we flee the worse. We belong to the good, through whom we drive away the disgraceful, to the just, through whom we reject the unjust, to the merciful, through whom we abandon the unmerciful, to the Savior, through whom we have recognized the destroyer, to the light, through whom we have cast off the darkness, to the one, through whom we have turned from the many, to the heavenly, through whom we have learned about the earthly, to the enduring, through whom we see the transitory. What better cause do we have for desiring to give thanks, to speak boldly, to sing a hymn, or to boast before the God who had mercy on us than that we have been recognized by him?
And after he had spoken with the women for some time, he at last sent them away, saying,
Go in peace. For you well know, O maidservants of Christ, that because of his love I will never entirely abandon you, and that because of his mediation, you will never again abandon me.
Each one left for home. For several days, while Agites had no thought of pressing charges against the apostle, there was great joy among them. Every day they were strengthened in the hope of the Lord. They convened fearlessly at the prison and were incessantly with Maximilla and Aphiadama and the others, because they were protected by the guardianship and grace of the Lord. One day, while Agites sat as judge, he remembered the case of Andrew. Like a maniac, he left the case at hand, rose from the bench, and dashed to the praetorium seething with anger at Maximilla, but flattering her all the same. Maximilla got home from the prison before he arrived. When he went in to her, he said,
Maximilla, because your parents thought me worthy to be your husband, they pledged you to me in marriage without regard to wealth, heredity, or reputation, considering only the kindness of my soul. Just now I deliberately left the court and came here not to enumerate the many matters I had wanted to reproach you with, such as the benefits I enjoyed from your parents, or the honors and favors you received from me during our lives together, such as your designation as my queen, but simply to learn from you this one thing. If you would be the woman you once were, living together with me as we are accustomed to, sleeping with me, having sexual relations with me, bearing my children, I would treat you well in every way. What is more, I will release the stranger whom I have imprisoned. But if you should not choose this course, I will do you no harm. I am unable to, but I will torment you indirectly through the one you love more than me. Answer me tomorrow, Maximilla, after you considered which of the two options you want, for I am fully prepared to carry out this threat.
Having said this, he left. At the usual time, Maximilla again went with the Fidama to Andrew. Putting his hands on her eyes and then bringing them to her mouth, she kissed them and began to seek his advice about every aspect of Ajit's ultimatum.
O Maximilla, my child,
Andrew replied,
I know that you have been moved to resist any proposition of sexual intercourse and wish to be dissociated from a foul and filthy way of life. For a long time this conviction has dominated my thinking, but still you want me to give my opinion. I bear you witness, Maximilla, do not commit this act. Do not submit to Ajit's threat. Do not be moved by his speech. Do not fear his disgusting schemes. Do not be conquered by his artful flatteries. Do not consent to yield yourself to his impure spells. Endure each of his tortures by looking to us for a while, and you will see him entirely numb and wasting away from you and from all of your kindred. Inasmuch as I do not keep silent in making the matter visible and actual through you, the most important thing I should say to you now comes to me. I rightly see in you Eve repenting, and in me Adam converting. For what she suffered through ignorance, you, whose soul I seek, must now redress through conversion. The very thing suffered by the mind which was brought down with her and was estranged from itself, I make right with you, through your recognition that you are being raised up. You healed her deficiency by not experiencing the same passions, and I have perfected Adam's imperfection by fleeing to God for refuge. Where Eve disobeyed, you obeyed. What Adam agreed to, I flee from. The things that trip them up, we have recognized. For is it ordained that each person should correct his or her own fall? Having said these things as I have said them, I would also say this, you have done well, O nature being saved, for you are neither overbearing nor in hiding. You have done well, O soul crying out what you've suffered and returning to yourself. You have done well, O man who learned what is not yours and speak on to what is yours. You have done well, O hearer of what is being said, for I know that you are greater than what is thought or said. I recognize that you are more powerful than those who presume to dominate you, more distinguished than those who cast you down to shame, than those who lead you away to captivity. O man, if you understand all these things in yourself, that you are immaterial, holy, light, akin to the unbegotten, intellectual, heavenly, translucent, pure, superior to the flesh, superior to the world, superior to the powers, superior to the authorities over whom you really are, if you perceive yourself in your condition, then take knowledge in what you excel. If you see your face in your own being, having broken every shackle, I mean not only those shackles acquired by birth, but also those beyond the realm of birth, whose magnificent names we have presented to you, then desire to see him who was revealed to you without having been created, whom you alone soon will recognize, if you take courage. I have said these things in your presence, Maximilla, because the force of what has been said applies also to you. Just as Adam died in Eve through his complicity with her, so also I now live in you through your observing the commandment of the Lord, and through your transporting yourself to a state worthy of your being. Scorn Ajit's threats, Maximilla, for you know that we have a God who has compassion on us. Do not let his threats move you, but remain chaste. Let him not only avenge himself on me with the tortures of captivity, let him also throw me to the beasts, burn me with fire, and throw me off a cliff. What does it matter? Let him destroy this body as he wishes, for it is only one body, and it is akin to him. Once again my speech is for you, Maximilla. I say to you, do not yield yourself to Ajit. Stand up against his ambushes, especially, Maximilla, since I saw the Lord saying to me, Andrew, Ajit's father, the devil, will use him to release you from this prison. So from now on keep yourself chaste and pure, holy, unsullied, unalloyed, unadulterated, separated from anything foreign to us, unbroken, undamaged, unweeping, unwounded, unvexed by storms, undivided, unfalling, unsympathetic to the works of Cain. For if you do not give yourself up to their opposites, Maximilla, I will rest, even if I am forcibly unloosed from this life for your sake, that is, for my sake. If I am driven from here, perhaps I can help others of my kindred because of you. But if you become won over by the seductions of Egedes and the flatteries of the serpent, his father, so that you return to your former sexual acts, know this, I will be punished there because of you, until you yourself realize that I despise living this life because of an unworthy soul. Therefore, I beg you, wise man, sick, that your clear-sighted mind stand firm. I beg you, mind unseen, that you may be protected. I entreat you, love Jesus. Do not be overcome by the inferior. You whom I entreat as a man, assist me in my becoming perfect. Help me too, so that you may recognize your true nature. Suffer with my suffering, so that you may recognize what I suffer and escape suffering. See what I see, and what you see will blind you. See what you should, and you will not see what you should not. Hear what I say and throw off whatever you heard from Egedes. I have said these things to you and to any who hear, if perchance you might hear. But to you, Stratocles,
he said, looking at him.
Why are you afflicted with many tears, and why do you groan out loud? Why do you despair? Why your great greed and great sorrow? You recognize what has been said, so why do I beg you, child, that you live accordingly? Do you know to whom I have said these things? Has each gripped your mind? Has it reached your intellect? Do I still have the one who listened to me? Do I find myself in war? Is there someone in you speaking whom I see as my own? Does he love the one who has spoken in me, and does he desire to have fellowship with him? Does he wish to be united with him? Does he strive to become loved by him? Does he long to be yoked with him? Does he find any rest in him? Does he have anywhere to lay his head? Surely there is nothing in you to resist him, nothing to be turbulent against him, nothing to counteract him, nothing to hate him, nothing to flee from him, nothing to be savage to him, nothing to shun him, nothing that is turned away from him, nothing to rush from him, nothing to be oppressed, nothing to fight him, nothing to conspire with others, no other things to disturb him, nothing to fight him, nothing to conspire with others, no other things to disturb him, nothing in you alien to me, no opponent, no corrupter, no enemy, no magician, no charlatan, no pervert, no deceiver, no traitor, no misanthrope, no hater of rational discourse, no one similar to tyrants, no boaster, no arrogant man, no maniac, no kinsman of the snake, no weapon of the devil, no advocate for fire, no friend of darkness. Stratocles, surely there is no one in you to oppose my saying these things, is there? Who is it? Answer. I do not speak in vain, do I? I have not spoken in vain, have I? No! Says the man in you who weeps once again, Stratocles.
Then Stratocles approached Andrew weeping and wailing. Andrew took Stratocles' hand and said,
I have the one I sought. I have found the one I desired. I hold the one I loved. I rest because of the one I have waited for. The very fact that you are still groaning louder and are weeping uncontrollably symbolizes for me that I have already achieved rest, because I have not spoken in vain to you the words which are akin to me. Most blessed Andrew,
Stratocles replied,
do not think that there's anything that vexes me but you, for the words which came from you are like fiery javelins impaling me. Each of them strikes me and truly blazes and burns with love for you. The sensitive part of my soul, which is disposed toward what I have heard, is tormented, and that is presages with anguish what will take place. For you yourself may leave, and I know well that it is good that you do so. But after this, wherein in whom will I seek and find your concern and love? I received the seeds of the words of salvation while you were my sower. For them to sprout and reproduce requires no one else but you, blessed Andrew. What do I have to say to you but this, servant of God? I need the great compassion and help that comes from you in order to be worthy to these seeds I already have from you, which I might not otherwise see undamaged and sprouting into the open without your willing it and praying for them and for my entire self. Child,
answered Andrew,
these things are what I myself also found in you. I glorify my Lord that my estimation of you was not groundless, but knew what it said, so that you all may know, tomorrow Egedes will hand me over to be impaled on a stake. Maximilla, the Lord's servant, will trouble the enemy in him to whom he belongs, and will not consent with him to do anything alien to her. By turning against me he will presume to console himself.
Maximilla was not present when the apostle said this, for when she heard the words that applied to her and in some way was changed by them, she became what the words themselves had signified. She rushed out deliberately and resolutely and went to the praetorium. Because she had bidden farewell to her whole life as well as to wickedness, the mother of the flesh, and to things pertaining to the flesh, when Aegetes made the same severe demand which he had told her to ponder, namely, whether she would be willing to sleep with him, she rebuffed him. He turned attention at last to the destruction of Andrew and considered what kind of death he might impose on him. Of all the options, crucifixion most preoccupied him. Then he went off with his friends and ate like an animal. Maximilla, led by the Lord disguised as Andrew, went to the prison again with Ephidamas. A great crowd of the brethren was inside when she found him speaking the following.
Brethren, the Lord sent me as an apostle to these regions of which my Lord considered me worthy, not to teach anyone, but to remind everyone akin to these words that all people pass their time among ephemeral evils, reveling in their destructive fantasies, which I have continually encouraged you to shun. I have urged you to pursue things that are permanent, and to flee from all that is transient. Look, not one of you stands firm, but everything, including human conventions, is in flux. This happens because of the uneducated soul's wandering into nature and retaining the pledges of its mistake. Therefore, I consider blessed those who have obeyed the words preached and who through them observe, as in a mirror, the mysteries concerning their proper nature, for the sake of which all things were constructed. Therefore, I command you, beloved children, to build firmly on the foundation laid for you, which is unshakable and impregnable to the stratagems of the wicked. Be rooted on this foundation. Stand firm, remembering everything that happened while I was living among all of you. You saw acts performed through me which you yourselves cannot disbelieve, such signs performed that perhaps even mute nature would have cried out in acclaim. I have handed over to you words which I pray you receive in the way the words themselves would want. Dear friends, stand firm in everything you have seen, heard, and participated in, and God, in whom you have believed, because he had mercy, will present you to himself as acceptable, eternally at rest. Do not let what is going to happen to me trouble you as though it were some strange marvel, namely that God's servant, by whom God himself provided many things through acts and words, will be violently driven from this passing life by a wicked man. This violence will not come upon me only, but also on all who have loved, believed, and confessed Jesus. The devil, entirely void of shame, will arm his own children against them, so that they may join forces with him. But he will not obtain what he wants. I will tell you why he undertakes these things. From the beginning of all things, in other words, from that time when the one without beginning descended to that realm under him to drive away the enemy, a stranger to peace, oppresses the one not belonging to him, but is merely one of the weaker, inconspicuous, and thus far unable to be recognized. And because this person does not understand, he has to wage war with him. In so far as the enemy also aspires to dominate him forever, he opposes him in a manner that makes their hostility resemble a friendship. In order to place him under his control, he often flaunted his own pleasure-loving and deceitful traits, supposing that through these he would subjugate him. By faking a friendship befitting his victim, he did not display himself openly as an enemy. This activity took place for so long that the victim forgot to recognize it. But the devil recognized it. That is, because of his gifts he was not seen to be an enemy. But when the mystery of grace was set aflame, and the plan for rest was revealed, and the light of the word was set forth, and the race being saved was proved to have been previously as with pleasures, and when the enemy saw himself scorned and his gifts, through which he thought to intimidate, ridiculed because of the goodness of the merciful one, he began to entangle us in hate, hostility, and insurrection. He has made it his business not to leave us alone until we give way to the things that he values. For when this was the case, our opponent had nothing to worry about, and he pretended to depict his status as friendly to us. He had no fear that we would revolt inasmuch as we had been deceived by him. But let us not stand aside from Christ by the deceit of the enemy, because the providence of God has been revealed to us and has enlightened us. He has weakened the enemy's power and arrogance. for the hidden aspect of the devil's nature and what seemed to be unnoticed, this Christ exposed and forced to confess what it was. Therefore, brethren, since we understand what will happen, let us awaken and separate ourselves from him. Let us not be vexed or agitated by the storm, and let us not bear in our souls traces of the devil which are not ours. But since we have been entirely buoyed up by the whole word, let us all eagerly anticipate the goal, and let us take flight from him, so that at last he may be exposed for what he is by nature, as we fly off to those things which are ours.
Throughout the night Andrew spoke these things to the brethren and prayed, and all rejoiced together and were confirmed in the Lord. Early in the morning, Ajit summoned Andrew from prison and said to him,
The time to complete my judgment against you has arrived, you stranger, alien to this present life, enemy of my home, and corrupter of my entire house. Why did you decide to burst into places alien to you and corrupt a wife who used to please me in every way and never slept with another man? She has convinced me that she now rejoiced in you and your God. So enjoy my gifts.
He commanded that Andrew be scourged with 7 whips. Then he sent him off to be crucified and commanded the executioners not to impale him with nails, but to stretch him out tied up with ropes, and to leave his knees uncut, supposing that by so doing he would punish Andrew even more cruelly. This matter became known to everyone, for it was rumored throughout Patras that the stranger, the righteous one, the man who possessed God, was being crucified by the impious Ajites, even though he had done nothing improper. All alike were outraged. As the executioners led him to the place intending to carry out their orders, Stratocles, who had learned what was happening, arrived running and saw the executioners violently dragging off the Blessed One like a criminal. Stratocles did not spare any of them but gave each a beating, ripped their clothing from top to bottom, tore Andrew away, and told them,
Thank the Blessed One for educating me and teaching me to check my violent temper. Otherwise, I would have demonstrated for you what Stratocles and Ajites the rogue are capable of. For we, believers, have learned to endure our afflictions.
He grabbed the apostle's hand and went away with him to the seaside location where he was to be crucified. The soldiers left and presented themselves to Ajites explaining what had happened.
Change your clothes.
The proconsul answered,
And go back there to perform your duties. When you rid yourselves of the convict's friends, then obey your orders. Avoid as best you can letting Stratocles see you, and do not argue if he should require from you anything at all. For I know the nobility of his soul, such that if provoked he probably would not even spare me.
They did exactly as Ajites told them. Stratocles walked with the apostle to the designated spot, but he was perturbed, furious with Ajites, now and then railing against him under his breath.
Stratocles, my child,
Andrew responded,
from now on I want you to keep your mind unwavering, and do not wait for advice from someone else, but take such advice from yourself, that you not be inwardly oriented toward seeming hardships, nor attached to mere appearances, for it is fitting for a servant of Jesus to be worthy of Jesus. I will tell you and the brethren walking with me something else about people alien to us. As long as the demonic nature lacks its bloody food and cannot suck up its nutrition, because animals are not slain, it weakens and recedes to nothingness, becoming entirely dead. But if it has what it longs for, it strengthens, expands, and rises up, growing by means of those foods it enjoys. This situation, child, obtains to those outside who die when we do not attach ourselves to what they are attached to. But even that self within ourselves which is contrary to our true nature, when it dares to do something and cannot find anyone to consent with it, is beaten and totally crushed to the earth, dead, because it did not complete what it undertook. Let us keep this image always before our eyes, children, so that we not grow drowsy and the opponent intrude and slaughter us. This is the end of my speech, for I think that while we were speaking we arrived at the appointed place. The cross planted there is a sign to me that this is the place.
He left everyone, approached the cross, and spoke to it in a loud voice.
Greetings, O cross. Greetings indeed. I know well that, though you have been weary for a long time, planted and awaiting me, now at last you can rest. I come to you, whom I have known. I recognize your mystery, why you were planted. So then, cross that is pure, radiant, full of life and light, receive me, I who have been weary for so long."
The Blessed One said these things standing on the ground looking intently at the cross. When he came to it, he commanded the brethren to summon the executioners, who were standing far away, to carry out their orders. When they came, they tied up only his feet and armpits, without nailing up his hands or feet nor severing his knees because of what the proconsul had commanded them, for Aegeus intended to torment him by being hung and being eaten by dogs if he were still alive at night. The brethren stood around, so many they were nearly innumerable. When they saw that the executioners had withdrawn and had carried out against the Blessed One none of the usual procedures suffered by those who were hung, they expected to hear something more from him, for even while hanging he moved his head and smiled.
"Why do you smile, Andrew, servant of God?"
asked Stratocles.
"Should your laughter not make us mourn and weep because we are being deprived of you? Shall I not laugh, Stratocles my child?"
Andrew answered,
"At Aegeus' futile trap by which he intends to avenge himself on us? He has not yet been persuaded that we are alien to him and his designs. He is not able to hear, since if he were able, he would have heard that the person who belongs to Jesus and who has been recognized by him in the end cannot be punished."
When Andrew had said these things, he addressed a general speech to everyone, for even the pagans had hurried to the site, infuriated at Aegeus' unjust decision.
"Men who are present with me, women, children, old, slaves, free, and any others who would hear, if you suppose this act of dying is the end of ephemeral life, leave this place at once. If you understand the conjunction of the soul with the body to be the soul itself, so that after the separation of the two, nothing at all exists, you possess the intelligence of animals, and one would have to list you among ferocious beasts. And if you love immediate pleasures, and pursue them above all, in order to enjoy their fruits exclusively, you are like thieves. And if you suppose that you are merely that which can be seen and nothing more, you are slaves of folly and ignorance. And if you perceive that only this nocturnal light exists and nothing in addition to it, you are kindred to this night. And if you think that your earthly food is capable of creating bodily mass and the blood's constitutive power, you yourselves are earthy. And if you suppose that you are happy even though you have an inequitable body, you actually are miserable. And if your external prosperity makes you happy, you truly are most wretched. And if the pleasure and intercourse of marriage please you, and if the corruption which is from them, full of pain, makes you sad, and if you are in need of sustenance for your many children, and if the irritating poverty they cause is known to you, it will upset you. And if the rest of your possessions draw you to themselves as though you belonged to them, may their impermanence reproach you. What benefit is there for you who gain for yourselves external goods, but do not gain your very selves? What pride issues from external ancestry, if the soul in you is held captive, soul to desires? And why do we desire pleasure and childbearing, for later we have to separate? No one knows what he does. Who will take care of his wife when he is preoccupied merely by the passions of desire? Or while the rest of the concern for externals, while you yourselves neglect what you actually are? I exhort you all rather to rid yourselves of this life which is painful, vain, senseless, boastful, empty, perishable, transitor, the friend of pleasures, the slave of time, the servant of drunkenness, the neighbor of debauchery, the possession of greed, the kindred of wrath, the empire of treachery, the ally of murders, the prince of hatred, the patron of desire, the master of adulteries, the mediator of jealousies, the instigator of murders. I entreat you who have come here together for my sake, abandon this entire life, and hasten to overtake my soul which speeds toward things beyond time, beyond law, beyond speech, beyond body, beyond bitter and lawless pleasures full of every pain. Observe now, even you, with the eyes of your souls, those things about which I speak. Follow my deep-seated love. Learn of my sufferings about which I am now speaking with you. Take my mind as a deposit. Participate in another fellowship for yourselves. Submit yourselves to my lashes, and cleanse your ears to hear what I say. Flee from everything merely temporal. Even now speed away with me. Even now I know that you are not inattentive to my words. Truly I see you mild as I wanted, and to be far away from external forms, for the internal is our unity. I greet you with the grace of God and with love which is due him, and even more with your consent to each other, to keep us away from those who do harm, and to apply to him, and to the good, and to the innocence which is to him, and to the accord which is in them. For this reason men quietly take courage in the knowledge of our God. On the one hand, I am leaving to prepare routes there for those who align themselves with me and are equipped with a pure faith and with love for him. I am stifling the fire, banishing the shadows, extinguishing the furnace, killing the worm, eradicating the threat, gagging the demons, muzzling and destroying the ruling powers, dominating the authorities, throwing down the devil, casting out Satan, and punishing wickedness. On the other hand, with respect to those who have come here not out of love for God, but out of hypocrisy and because of unfruitful pleasures, who have submitted themselves to superstition, disbelief, and every other ignorance, and who suppose nothing else exists after one's released from here, all these monsters fly out, become agitated, rush forth, take wing, ravage, fight, conquer, rule, wreak vengeance, inflame, rage, afflict, punish, and attack. They blaze, enact violence, and do not withdraw or relent, but rejoice, exult, smile, mock, and take their rest and delight in all who are similar to them, possessing those who succumb to them by not believing in my God. Choose then which of the two paths you prefer, for the choice is yours to decide.
When the crowds heard Andrew's speech, they were won over by him, so to say, and did not leave the spot. The Blessed One proceeded to speak to them even longer than he had before, to such an extent that those who him took it as a sign. He spoke to them for 3 days and nights, and no one, no matter how weary, separated from him. On the 4th day, when they observed his nobility, the adamance of his thought, the sheer abundance of his words, the value of his exhortation, the stability of his soul, the prudence of his spirit, the firmness of his mind, and the precision of his reasoning, they were furious with the Jews and together ran off to the tribunal. As he sat there they cried out,
What is this judgment of yours, O proconsul? You have judged wickedly. You have made an unjust decision. Your courts are a sacrilege. What crime did the man commit? What evil has he done? The city is in uproar. You are wronging us all. You are grieving us all. Do not betray the city of the emperor. Grant the Achaeans a just man. Grant us this God-fearing man. Even though he has been hanging for 4 days, he is still alive. Although he has eaten nothing, he has been hanging for 4 days, he is still alive. Although he has eaten nothing, he has nourished us with his words. Bring the man down and we will all become philosophers. Untie the prudent one, and all patrons will be law-abiding. Release the wise man, and all Achaea will receive mercy.
When the Jews at first disregarded the crowd and gestured for them to leave the tribunal, they were enraged and were gaining courage to oppose him in some way. They numbered about 2,000. When the proconsul saw that they were in some way incensed, he was terrified that he might suffer a revolution. He rose from the tribunal and went off with them, promising to release the blessed Andrew. Some ran ahead to disclose to the apostle this very fact as well as the reason for Ajit's coming to the place. The crowd was jubilant, because the blessed Andrew was about to be untied, and when the proconsul arrived, all the brethren were rejoicing, among them Maximilla. When Andrew heard this, he said,
Oh, the great lethargy of those I have taught. Oh, the sudden fog engulfing us even after many mysteries. Oh, how much we have spoken up to the present, and we have not convinced our own. Oh, how much has happened so that we might flee the earthly. Oh, what strong statements have been spoken against carnal things, and yet they want more of the same. Oh, how many times I have prayed that I might lift them from these filthy habits, but instead they were encouraged to nothingness. Why this excessive fondness for the flesh? Why this great complicity with it? Do you again encourage me to be put back along things in flux? If you understood that I have been loosened from ropes but tied up to myself, you yourselves would have been eager to be loosened from the many and to be tied to the one. What should I say? I know well that what I am saying will happen, for you yourselves will I tie up with me, and after liberating myself, I will release myself from all things, and become united with the one who came into being for all and who exists beyond all. But now that Ajit is coming to me, I will keep quiet and embrace my children. Whatever I must resolve by speaking to him, these I will speak. Egetes, why have you come to us again? Why should you who are foreign to us come to us? What do you want to attempt now? What do you want to contrive? Whom do you wish to summon? Say something. Have you come to untie us because you changed your mind? Even if you really did change your mind, Egetes, I would never accede to you. Were you to promise all your possessions, I would stand aloof from them. Were you to say you yourself were mine, I would not trust you. Would you untie the one who is tied up, proconsul? Would you untie the one who has fled? Would you untie the one who has liberated? Would you untie the one recognized by his kindred, the one who received mercy, the one loved by him, the one alien to you, the stranger who appeared so only to you? I possess the one with whom I will always be. I possess the one with whom I will be a compatriot for countless ages. It is to him that I go. It is to him that I speed on, to the one who made me recognize even you by saying to me, Mark Egetes and his gifts. Do not let that rogue frighten you, and let him not suppose that he can seize you, for you are mine. He is your enemy. He is a corrupter, a cheat, a destroyer, a slanderer, merciless, a maniac, a plotter, a murderer, an insolent egotist, a flatterer, a magician, terrible, petulant, insensitive, and decorated on all sides by his material veneer. Inasmuch as I recognized you through your turning to me, I am released from you. Proconsul, I know well that you bewail and mourn because of what I am saying to you as I flee to the one beyond you. You will weep, beat your breast, gnash your teeth, grieve, despair, lament, anguish, and behave like your relative the sea, which you now see furiously troubled by waves, because I am leaving all of you. The grace which came because of me is delightful, holy, just, true, charming and articulate, along with all the things by which you seem to have been adorned through me.
When the proconsul heard these things, he stood there speechless and as if stunned. Andrew looked at him again and said,
Egetes, enemy of us all, now you stand there watching. You stand there quiet and calm, unable to do anything you dare. My kindred and I speed on to things our own, leaving you to be what you are and what you fail to understand about yourself.
And when Egetes again attempted to approach the wood to untie Andrew, the entire city was in an uproar at him. The apostle Andrew shouted,
O Master, do not permit Andrew, the one tied to your wood, to be untied again. O Jesus, do not give me to the shameless devil, I who am attached to your mystery. O Father, do not let your opponent untie me, I who am hanging upon your grace. May he who is little no longer humiliate the one who has known your greatness. But you yourself, O Christ, you whom I desired, whom I loved, whom I know, whom I possess, whom I cherish, whose I am, receive me, so that by my departure to you there may be a reunion of my many kindred, those who rest in your majesty.
When he has said these things and further glorified the Lord, he handed over his spirit, so that we wept and everyone grieved his departure. After the departure of the blessed apostle, Maximilla, accompanied by Stratocles, completely disregarding those standing around her, came forward, untied the corpse of the Blessed One, and having provided it with the necessary attention, buried it at nightfall. She separated from Egetes because of his savage soul and lawless public life. Thereafter, though he simulated good behavior, she had nothing whatever to do with him. Choosing instead a life holy and quiet, provided for by the love of Christ, she spent her time happily with the brethren. Even though Egetes often importuned her and offered her the opportunity to control his affairs, he was not able to persuade her. One night, undetected by anyone in his household, he threw himself from a great height and died. Stratocles, Egetes' brother according to the flesh, did not want so much as to touch the property Egetes left. The wretch died childless. He said,
May your possessions go with you, Egetes. May Jesus be my friend and a his. Casting from me the entire lot of external and internal evils, and entrusting to that one everything I own, I thrust aside everything averse to him.
Here let me make an end of the blessed tales, acts, and mysteries difficult, or should I say impossible, to express. Let this stroke of the pen end it. I will pray first for myself, that I heard what was actually said, both the obvious and also the obscure, comprehensible only to the intellect. Then I will pray for all who are convinced by what was said, that they may have fellowship with each other, as God opens the ears of the listeners, in order to make comprehensible all his gifts in Christ Jesus our Lord, to whom, together with the Father, be glory, honor and power with the all-holy and good and life-giving Spirit, now and always, forever and ever. Amen.